The truth occurs. The truth occurs.
Hi everyone. Well, I've been doing some research on the connection between antibiotics and weight gain, and I've been finding some really amazing stuff. So I wanted to share that with you. So as you know, a lot of North Americans struggle with their weight, and a lot of people will admit that that's probably because they eat too much and eat too much of the wrong things. But some people will tell you that it seems like it doesn't matter what they eat. Maybe they just eat kind of normally, and yet they still struggle with their weight. They have a really hard time losing weight. And they'll say that they probably have a slow metabolism. And, well, is this possible, or are they just making excuses for themselves? According to what I've been finding, this is in fact very possible, and actually most likely what's really going on with a lot of people. In America, 80% of antibiotics that are purchased are used for livestock, and they're not used to treat disease in the livestock. They're used to fatten the livestock. It's been known since the 1950s that administering subclinical levels of antibiotics to farm animals will slow their metabolism down, and so this way you can feed them less and still fatten them up while saving money. Is it possible that antibiotics are also doing the same thing to people? Well, that's really the big question. Well, apparently it's been known as far back as 1955 that there may be a connection. There was a study done, published in the Journal of Nutrition, done by Dr. Thomas Haidt et al., as they say, called Effects of Prolonged Antibiotic Administration on the Weight of Healthy Young Males. And if you look at the results, you'll see that the men that were treated with oromycin and penicillin gained more weight than those who were treated with placebo. And here's a study where they produced the same results in mice to study the mechanism of it. Antibiotics in early life alter the murine colonic microbiome and adiposity. So what this basically means here, in normal terms, is that feeding the mice antibiotics early in life altered their gut flora and led to them being more prone to weight gain. They got fat mice. And they say actually the administration of subtherapeutic antibiotic therapy increased adiposity, which means body fat, in young mice and increased hormone levels related to metabolism. We observed substantial taxonomic changes in the microbiome, changes in copies of key genes involved in the metabolism of carbohydrates to short-chain fatty acids. So there you have it. At least in mice, this study proved that antibiotics change the way you metabolize carbohydrates and make you more likely to gain more weight. So some other scientists thought, well, is it possible that this can happen to children as well? So they did a study called Infant Antibiotic Exposures and Early Life Body Mass, which means the relationship between being given antibiotics very early, as a baby, and how fat you are later. And what they found here was that children who were exposed to antibiotics very early in life, especially before the age of 6 months, were more likely to have a higher body mass, weight problems basically down the road. So clearly the antibiotics change your gut flora. This alters your metabolism. And maybe we should be more careful about how we use antibiotics. Maybe we shouldn't be feeding them to livestock. This is actually banned in Europe, and Europeans tend to be thinner. I don't know if that's why. Probably it's not the only reason. But maybe the antibiotics we're exposed to through our food also play a role in this. But so here's another study, an obesity-associated gut microbiome with increased capacity for energy harvest. What does that mean? It means that your gut flora is, it metabolizes carbohydrates more efficiently. Well, what it does is it sticks them onto your body. Increased capacity for energy harvest. So it gets more energy out of the food, as in it'll store it on your body. So it's an obesity-associated gut microbiome. So having this is associated with obesity. It says colonization of germ-free mice with an obese microbiota results in a significantly greater increase in total body fat than colonization with a lean microbiota. So what they did is they took mice who were germ-free. They're just bred that way. And then they transplanted these bacteria into their colon, either from the obese microbiota, like the bacteria that's associated with the weight gain, or lean microbiota. And it showed that just by transplanting this bacteria into your gut, into the mouse's gut, it could affect their metabolism and make them either stay lean or get fat. Well, if you can take a mouse that is lean and just by transplanting the gut flora, make it get fat, can you do this in reverse? And could you do this to humans? Because what is the solution? I mean, a lot of people have been exposed to antibiotics. How can you restore your gut flora? Probably it's going to have to be more than just eating some yogurt. And so there's actually a study being done, Fat Lose 2 trial, fecal administration to lose insulin resistance. I know that sounds awful, fecal administration, but what they're doing is they're studying obese men, 45 of them, and they're taking bacteria and transplanting it into their colon to see whether it affects their metabolism. But according to this New York Times article, the scientists are finding that the transplants from lean donors are changing how the obese subjects metabolize sugar. So this is really important and wonderful news because so many people struggle with their weight. Doctor might put them on thyroid medication. You know, people say that, well, you need to go to Weight Watchers, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. But you know what? Maybe it's really just that your body's flora has been altered, and that's why you have so much trouble. And I'll give you an example. Actually, my own son, he tends to pack on weight really easily. I noticed that he actually eats less than other children that I know, but he seems to pack it on. So I have to be very careful what I feed him. And I have a friend whose son also tends to pack the weight on really easily. His sister is skinny like a reed. He's pretty hefty. They eat the same thing. Nobody knows why she's so skinny and he's so hefty. And I was talking to my friend the other day, and okay, this isn't exactly scientific, but it did cross my mind. I had antibiotics when I was pregnant. No, I had antibiotics during labor, and she had antibiotics when she was pregnant, as it turned out. So maybe even exposure, prenatal exposure or exposure during birth can alter this flora. But the question is, what's the solution? And from the research, it really looks like what they call a fecal transplant, a microbiota transplant, may be the solution. So I think this is something that people should look into. Researchers should look into it. So I hope this is useful to you, helpful information, and thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.
Choose the girls.